So I did a part one video of how I almost got deported from America. And I ended with how they had to end up giving me back my green card. This happened, I want to say, back in 2016. So after that, I traveled. I was able to travel a few times after that, maybe 2 or 3 years after that. I traveled consecutively. So I traveled in 2017, 2018, 2019, and I think it was in 2020 I got stopped again. So when I got stopped in 2020, I got stopped. This time I had gotten the name of the officer that stopped me. So I'm coming through Fort Lauderdale Airport, and of course I end up in a dark room. Now remember what I told you the dark room was this immigration room that they take you in, that's so cold and so morbid, and you find people in there crying, people in there like upset, people are just, and you can't really say too much in there because they'll definitely deport you, or find ways to deport you if you're in there and you say something out of the way that they don't like. So I end up in this dark room again, wondering why I'm in this room. So he takes me in and he says to me, his name was Winchester, by the way. So right away, from the moment that I heard his name was Winchester, I didn't even have to ask twice as to why he drugged me back into that room. Now, I want to say this before I start my story. A lot of these immigration officers, they pull a lot of people from a lot of different countries. A lot of these different countries, people do all sorts of stuff. And when I say all sorts of stuff, I may not believe in voodoo, and I may not believe in De La Renz or Santa Maria or Obia or whatever you guys want to call it. But you'll find that these people that are ICE agents very seldom work for long, long years in their position. They have to move around a lot because a lot of these people do all sorts of stuff to them and they don't even realize it. But anyway, that's a video for another time, because I assume that these people really put it on them. So, but anyway, he stops me. I go into the dark room and he starts to question me about my father. So he starts asking me all sorts of stuff about my father and where's my father from, and at some point he felt like my father was from the U.S. Virgin Islands or something like that. I don't know what made him think that, but I'm telling him, no, my father was a Jamaican. He's from Jamaica, whatever. So I said to him, but I'd been stopped before and I'd been cleared by Homeland Security. And, I went to ICE because they had put me up for, parole before. He says, well, I'm looking at the records and I noticed that there was something written, but I don't understand what's written. I can't understand it. It doesn't seem right to me. This was his thought, that it didn't seem right to him. Now, someone on a bigger level than him had already cleared me, but he felt like the person that cleared me, or he felt like my clearance was not justified. So he decided to put me up for parole for a second time, which was cool. I didn't mind that because I already know I'm undeportable. So he puts me up for parole, but this time he doesn't let me go to Homeland Security. This time he says, I'm putting you up to the deportation judge. You have to go in front of the deportation judge. So now My situation has gotten even worse. Now I have to get a lawyer. Because before, when they tried to deport me the first time, I didn't need a lawyer. I went in front of the Homeland Security and ICE. So this time now, I need a lawyer because I'm going directly in front of the judge. So they give me a parole paper, put the parole paper in my passport, and they took away my green card again for the second time. So I go down to Miami, and there was a lawyer that someone referred me to in Miami. And when I go to Miami to this lawyer, I asked him, I told him exactly what was going on with me. And I asked him how much he would charge. He said, well, I could see your case is definitely a case of prejudice because he had pulled some records from me and everything like that. Apparently he was an immigration lawyer. He was on some system where he was able to pull records. So he pulled some immigration records and he said, I could see clearly that this is a case of prejudice. He says, they can't deport you, but I'll charge you $7,000 to do the case. So I said, okay, I will contact you back and let you know what's going on. So I leave after my consultation, come back to Broward County. When I come back to Broward County, I had a lawyer friend, and I contacted my lawyer friend 2 days later. I said, listen to me, having a little situation here, and I spoke with a lawyer already, and it's not working out too good because he's all the way in Miami. I never told my lawyer friend how much he was going to charge me. I just made it look like it was an inconvenience for me to go down to Miami to go see this guy. So he says to me, D, what's happening? He was also an immigration lawyer. So I put the case in front of him. He also had a system where he could go up, look, check to see what was going on. When he checked the system, he says, you can't be deported. He says, but however, I'll charge you $1,500 to take the case. But every time that I have to drive to Miami, you have to give me an additional $300 because for gas and food and whatever. I said, no problem. I had no problem with that because it was cheaper than $7,000. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, how many times does he think he's going to be going to Miami? That's what I'm thinking. So it took them about 6 or 7 months before they sent me an actual court date. So I went on my court date. The lawyer went with me. Of course, he prepared everything he was supposed to prepare, brought it, went on a court date. We went, and there was an old Cuban lady. She was older than me. That was working for the state. So when you go to these hearings, it's the state against you. So she kept on trying to convince the judge, whom the judge also was an old Cuban woman, convince the judge that I should be deported. So they brought up my charges that I had gotten. And my charges were petty theft, assault, and trespassing. So, of course, you know, they're trying to figure out if any one of these charges are charge of moral turpitude, as they would say. Because if it's a charge of moral turpitude, then they can use that actual charge to deport you from this country. So the state was pushing the judge, trying to get the judge to order a deportation decree or whatever you would call it. And it seemed to me like the judge was trying to say, I want to hear more. Let me put this off. So eventually the judge put it off and rescheduled our court date for another day. But what I did notice is that the judge did, before my case was called, there was another case that was called, and it was a little Cuban kid had done something wrong, and apparently what ended up happening with this Cuban kid was she let him go, and she gave him a second chance. Told him, oh, you good, second chance, da-da-da-da. So I'm thinking, oh, what a nice judge. She's so cool. She's willing to give people second chances. And also, I'm looking at the state that's trying to get me deported. And I'm like, what a evil BITC, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. Well, the judge put the case off for another time and said she'd send us a appointment again in no, she didn't say she'd send us an appointment. She gave us an appointment at that time. All right. So we leave out of the courtroom. On the way out the courtroom, but before we left the courtroom, my lawyer went back to the state and he said to the state, this old Cuban lady, can you look in your files? Because she had a file, like a big bunch of files in a trolley that she was trolling around. Looked like she was going from courtroom to courtroom to courtroom all day. He says, can you pull my client's file and give her her green card back? She's like, oh, no, I don't have her green card. My client said, my lawyer said, yes, you do. It's in the file. You just got to look correctly. No, I don't have it. I don't have it. You might want to go downstairs at the clerk's office and get it then. So we go downstairs. It's not there. They tell us that she's got it in the files upstairs. So we come back up to her. She searched properly, found it, and gave me my green card back. Now, remember from the first incident, when they had taken my green card from when they tried to deport me the first time, they're not allowed to really take your green card, but they do it. But because nobody says anything and nobody's going to argue the issue, they keep your green card till you show up. And apparently that's their way of saying you can't travel until you come see us. But anyway, we leave the courtroom. And when we leave the courtroom, I asked my lawyer, I turned to my lawyer and says, when I come back on this next appointment, will the same judge be there? He says, yes. I turned to him, I said, will the state be there when I come back, the same state? He said a lot of times no, because they change them out depending on who's working or what case file is being given to whom. I said, oh, okay, no problem. Now, I've always learned I'm not a Christian type of person, and I don't go to church, and I'm an atheist. Like I said, if you watch a couple of my prior videos. But one thing I do know, that Psalms is one of the greatest things that you can say, and you can read Psalms, and it could protect you or heal you in different ways. So when that happened, what I did was I ended up saying, okay, when I got home, I was going to open up my damn Psalms and I was going to start reading, because when I go back to court, I don't want to end up seeing the same person at all. I want a different state to come in, and I want somebody who's young and who doesn't want to be bothered and who's discombobulated and want to throw the case out. Fast forward, 6 months go by and my case was called up again. I ended up in Miami. Guess what? I got what I prayed for. Young girl, discombobulated, didn't want to be bothered. I'm now in front of this judge, the same judge whom I thought was a cool person. So we're in front of the judge, and the young girl who is with the state now, she wants the case to be thrown out. She wants the case to be thrown out, but this judge is now fighting to not throw the case out. And I'm like, wait a minute. Wasn't it this same judge that was trying to help me before, but now it seems like she's against me? What kind of shit is this? Okay. So I'm sitting there in the courtroom, and she's pondering away with the young girl, trying to make the young girl, trying to figure out, well, why do you want the case dropped? And so the young girl's telling her there's really no charges. There's no case, right? Then she turns to my lawyer and says to my lawyer, she says, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this case into my quarters, and I'm going to deliberate on it. And I'm going to let you know something in a couple of weeks. Well, at this point, my lawyer got up, turned to her and said, Your Honor, she's undeportable. She cannot be deported. So the judge says, why? He looks at the judge, says she cannot be deported. The judge says, why? He says he gave her some code, like, title so-and-so, section so-and-so. I didn't even know what the hell that was, but he told her in their terms as to why I could not be deported. Well, if you have ever seen a deer in headlights, I have, because I used to drive up in Okeechobee and places like that where they have deers running across the road. And when they see the headlights, it's like they stop and they're like, now, that was the look on the judge's face. She stopped dead in her tracks and she was like, because guess what happened? When they get a case, they don't look at your history before they determine what's on top of the file. They just go off of what's on top of the file. They couldn't care less what's beneath that file. They don't spend the time to go and look. So they waste all this government money throwing cases back, putting cases back, doing all kind of shit, yada, yada, yada. Well, one of the things that happened, or why my lawyer turned to her and said, was, I can't be deported because guess why? I came here as an adoptee when I was 7 years old. And being here as an adoptee, I didn't commit my first crime until I was way in my 40s. So they considered it a crime. I considered it self-defense, but I'm going to tell the story about that. So, by law, the only time they could deport me at this point is if I kill someone. Because I'd been here years and years and years before they considered me committing my first crime. So the law, or whatever they were trying to do, does not pertain to me, does not affect me. They can't touch me. And I was adopted here by 2 American citizens to the United States. So we walked out of the courtroom, and I asked my lawyer what he said, and that was the explanation that my lawyer gave me, that she can't deport me because I've been here for years. I've been here as a child. I was an adoptee, and my crime wasn't committed until, I think there's an age limit or a year limit, like 35 or something, some odd years like that, 35 years. But I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's somewhere around there. So that was my second experience of them trying to deport me, and they couldn't deport me. So fast forward, when this lawyer, when not the lawyer, but when the judge found out that she really couldn't deport me, guess what? She held on to my files for another 8 months before she dropped it and sent my lawyer the paperwork to show that the case was dropped and she could no longer do anything to me. 8 months I sat, right? Because I had my green card back, but my lawyer said, do not travel until this case is actually ended, till she sent me the paperwork to drop the case. So that was my second time being or attempting to be deported. So I'm going to talk about the 2 times that my father tried to deport me, because that's also relevant, because he tried to deport me too. So I figured if people have been trying to deport me since I've been here, I must be really lucky, or I must be like one of those kind of people, like, don't care what you do, you just can't deport me. I don't know. But like, share, follow. Please make a comment on this. Tell me what you think, and tell me your deportation experiences, or if they have attempted to deport you too and it didn't work out for them. But like, share, follow, comment. Have a good day, guys.